Hello, and thanks for watching my video again. If this is your first time watching me on camera, then I encourage you to watch previous videos too. It's always something new I hope to introduce, but today is exciting because I've tried to collect all of the questions that you've been asking me in emails, on my website, through Facebook, Messenger usually. Any way that they come to me. And some questions have been asked of from my current clients too. So I have my list here and I'm going to try to go through each question, mostly related to Kumari of the Woods, which is this restorative forest retreat that my sons and I are building in Vermont. So that's actually the first question. Some people have asked, where is this located? It is in Stratford, Vermont, and it's in an area of Vermont called the Upper Valley, which is on the New Hampshire side of the state, about, I would say, an hour and a half from the border, the southern border of Vermont, traveling up I-91. We're pretty accessible from both highways, 91 or 89 in the state, the only two highways in the state. And we are remote, so that you kind of jump off the beaten path for about 20 minutes, and then you come to this beautiful 52.9 acres of forest, and where we are creating a space for you to restore your energy in any way that's healthy for you. Okay, so that's one question I've been getting, is the location. Let me also just say quickly that if you're coming from out of state, there's an Amtrak service that is called the Vermonter. That has a train stop about 30 minutes from us. There's also a small airport that's right across the Connecticut River on the New Hampshire side in Lebanon, New Hampshire. You could try to access us that way. If you are really flying a distance, you might want to fly into Boston, and there's a great bus service called the Dartmouth Coach that you can take from the Logan Boston Airport up to our area. So there's lots of ways of getting here. And we do allow cars on the property so that you probably can be able to park close to where you're staying if you're staying overnight. Okay, so some people have asked, what exactly is available for where you can stay overnight? So we are building these cottages that are between 400 up to 800 square feet. They are year-round, have a beautiful heating system. Most of you probably know my son is a heating and plumbing contractor, so he's put in a great heating system for people who come in the winter. It's a radiant floor heat and fully equipped kitchens, bathrooms, hooked to a septic, decks that you can sit out, in beautiful weather, you can sit out on the deck. And you can also, if you're driving, you can park your car near those cottages. So that's one option, that you can stay in a cottage, book a stay in a cottage. The other option is where I'm sitting right now, and it's very minimal, but really cozy. It's a little hideaway, we call them, and they're sheds. They have tin roofs, big windows in front of me, doors that you can close. Right now, they're not hooked to the electrical grid, so we have lots of fairy lights that you can turn on at night, so it's, a cozy amount of light. You can always, we probably will also have like battery-operated lanterns in each one too. There's a little deck, and there's also off the deck a composting toilet for your convenience too. Most of the cooking we're going to have outdoors of these hideaways, and the hideaways are just magical. They're tucked away in the forest. And so in compliance with the permits that we've had to get for our retreat, we do have to ask those who are staying in a hideaway to park in a particular area, and then you'll be hiking to the hideaway. Not a huge hike, but it will be slightly uphill too. So just kind of keep all that in mind. It, I think, will offer you a really peaceful stay, whether you're in a hideaway or a cottage, but definitely in the hideaway, it'll be very, very quiet. So I hope that helps to clarify that question. So people have asked about cooking and food and what they should bring with them. So, and I also wanted to say the light keeps changing on my video because I'm right by this huge window in the hideaway and the sun keeps rolling in and out, which is so beautiful. You are expected to bring your own food. Or, of course, once you get here, especially if you're going to be here for a week or 2 weeks, there's shopping nearby. There's actually about 3 different food co-ops that have wonderful, healthy, local food. But you, of course, can bring some things for the first day or so. And we will have everything written down in terms of if you're staying in a hideaway, we're going to have containers that are bear-proof that you can put food in at night. You can also store it in your car. But, you know, taking safety precautions, of course, not to feed any of the lovely creatures that live here in the forest is a really good idea. And we'll help you with that too. In the cottages, of course, there's fully equipped kitchens, so you'll be able to, you know, store your food, refrigerate your food, cook your food, all of that in the cottages. I'll just say that at some point down the road, because some people have asked this too, we probably will offer some kind of meals on the land. And I don't know exactly what that'll look like yet, but it will be a few years down the road that we might be able to have maybe an outdoor kitchen where people could cook in a community space, and also meals that could be offered as a community. But for now, that's farther off. How long can you stay? I've had this question from artists who want to come and have even asked, like, could I stay for 6 months? We are probably not going to rent out the spaces for as long as 6 months. We do ask for a minimum of a 2-night stay. You can stay a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. You can stay up to a month is what we're thinking. If you do feel like you are an artist, like working on a novel or a piece of art, or maybe you're an educator, you're trying to put together curriculum, you're trying to find peace and quiet, that kind of thing, we would negotiate, like if you wanted 2 months. But for now, we're looking at a minimum 2-night stay and up to a month of a stay. And someone asked me, like somebody who really wanted to work on a novel, asked if they had to interact, like if it's a community space where you're expected to interact. We are having an event space where classes in yoga and afternoon meditation can take place if you want to participate. There is no expectation that you have to go to the yoga class or you have to meditate. If you are here, you know, for your own purposes of creative endeavors and engaging in your work, and you really value the silence and the peace and quiet, this is the place to come to. The forest is really quiet, which will lead me into another question that someone had. We are not intending to create ruckus in the forest. I think about that book, The Wild Thing. Um, we value everyone's privacy, and we value the fact that we all need some stillness in our lives. You know, a place to just sit and reflect and meditate, maybe take a nap, whatever is healing for you. So, you know, there's not going to be like large music events here. There's not going to be large weddings here. We have nothing against marriage or commitment ceremonies. If somebody has a small commitment ceremony or marriage they want to have in the forest with a few people, etc., we would honor that, but not like 100, 200 people. That's not what we're all about. And in the process of getting our permits, we also had to express that to the town so that, you know, 200 people wouldn't be showing up. That kind of thing. I mean, there's wonderful event spaces for that in other locations, in other kinds of retreats and spas and everything, but that's not really Kumari of the Woods. Okay, so I hope that explains it. Now, in that same regard, you know, there's kirtan, there's Celtic music, there's performances, classical Indian music that is just, I feel like, so transformative for my soul. And yes, I know a number of musicians that are eager to perform here, and probably inside of our event space, and again, not a packed audience. You know, if we have a huge interest, maybe that performing artist would be willing to have 2 performances so we could split the audiences. But yeah, we're not packing people in. We want everyone to be comfortable and to really, you know, enjoy your time and value what it is that you are participating in. So in that regard, in talking about those small music events, maybe on the weekends, we will be having programs, so like a workshop, maybe all day Saturday, or maybe a Saturday, Sunday workshop. And I know there's a ton of questions about like, what kind of workshops will you have? Well, we're pretty open to those teachers, educators, coaches, counselors who might want to offer their services in a group setting. And what would that look like? You know, maybe starting on Saturday morning, ending Sunday at noon or something like that. And those events, as well as the yoga classes during the week, will be open to other people who don't want to spend the night in the forest in a cottage or hideaway. They might want to just drive in for the day and leave, that sort of thing. So there's a mixture of nurturing the people who stay here and allowing them, if they wish to participate, it would be extra to participate in the workshops, and also inviting the community to also come and experience Kumari of the Woods and whatever programs we have. I mean, the variety of programs is just growing every single day because I have remarkable people like all of you watching my videos who are contacting me and saying, I have this idea for a sound healing workshop. Fabulous. We would love that. There's many different types of yoga workshops that practitioners have either suggested to me or I've reached out to them that is phenomenal. Like, I mean, I practice restorative yoga. I've taught that before. It's so healing for the body and the soul when especially if you're going through a troubled time. We definitely will bring restorative workshops here. But also chair yoga and other forms of practicing the art of yoga in a safe and beautiful environment. There'll be some programs that are also offered on the land, including some yoga. Definitely meditation walks on the land. There'll be forest bathing on the land, drumming circles at times. But inside the event space will be a variety. I've had a number of writers, professional writers who want to offer their craft and teach, coach others on their art and their craft. I'm so excited about those. And of course, the poets, visual artists. We hope that they bring their craft here to teach it, to explore it with others. And again, both in the event space or in the forest is wonderful. I will also say that part of our big plan that we're putting together, because we're working with a lender now who wants to see what is the whole plan of Kumari of the Woods. We want to create a space where artists, visual artists, will have actual physical space to create their work too. So it's, if they want to stay on the land in a hideaway cottage, and then for a certain fee a day could rent another space for their art, depending on what kind of art they make. So we're hoping for that too. I think that will definitely happen. Can dogs come to the retreat? That's near and dear to my heart, because all of you who watch my videos, usually Charlotte's here or Sam are Labradors, and they're just, of course, delightful. Yeah, and the spirit of our chocolate lab, Maisie, lives in our forest. We lost Maisie in April, mid-April. So in regards to bringing dogs, we just ask that they be well behaved, and that you watch over them, of course. I'm sure nobody would come here bringing a dog that would have a risk of harming anyone, but that is what we want. We hope will guide you in your determination if you bring a pet with you. I love cats and dogs, so I don't want to exclude them. The same thing, I actually haven't been asked this question, but I'll just say, if someone is intending to bring a child, a teenager is probably different. We want to treat them as much as an adult as possible, and, give them those adult expectations. If it's a young child, then we do ask that you be with that child all the time, or have a caregiver, somebody with that child. In other words, we don't want the children just like running free in the forest. It's a safety thing too. So I haven't been asked that question about children, and it is a complicated question too, because I've raised 5 children who are adults now, and I care deeply about parents. But we also really value the quietness of the retreat that we're creating, and really hope that our visitors, our guests, honor that as well. Okay, I can always answer the question about children later too, as we move farther. Okay, so many people ask this: who is Kumari? Well, I'm Kumari Patricia, and let me just say briefly what the origins of my name are. I was given at birth the name Patricia, and I took the name of Kumari about 11 years ago now. Part of it was associated with a lovely relationship I had at the time from somebody who was from Mumbai, India, and I was given the name Kumari, which has many different meanings to it. It can mean, princess, goddess, little girl. It has been, it's been worshipped, I think, in Nepal and parts of India. It really supported my identity at the time, and it still does, because I felt like I needed a transition from my last name, which was still my ex-spouse's last name, which legally I still have that. So in adopting the name Kumari Patricia, I felt like I could drop that last name, which was no longer really my identity. I am hoping to go back to my name. I had it, my name given at birth, which is Solner, a very German name. But for now, most people know me as Kumari Patricia. How can you address me? Most people now call me Kumari. If you call me Patricia, that's fine. Don't call me Pat. Anyway, Patty is fine too. But I will say that my transitioning to Kumari Patricia came at a really important time in my life, both with that relationship, but I had a little yoga studio for a while and called it Kumari Yoga. So the way I teach yoga is a little bit different, more fluid, very restorative for our bodies. And I do think of it as Kumari Yoga. And even in terms of my artistic practice and painting, you know, I think of it as Kumari Studios. So it carries over, and now it carries into this retreat. It seemed like a natural to call what we're building here Kumari of the Woods, because this is where I am. This is where I will be. I feel like till the end of my life, I will be here in the woods. So that also leads me kind of to another question or observations that people have had. The intention is I'm going to build my house more integrated into the retreat. It will probably have it will have a guest space, especially for the workshop teachers and, you know, counselors and all who come here, so they will have a place to stay. And that is still being developed. All of that's being developed. But my intention is to be rooted here in the forest with all of you who visit. And that takes me to my last question, because many people, some of my current clients, have asked, am I going to have my coaching services here at the retreat? And the answer is absolutely. Absolutely. That's what I'm creating. Actually, this particular hideaway that I'm sitting in is a space that I do meet with local clients here in this space. It's very cozy. And I will be continuing that. I mean, chances are my private space might be closer to where I'm building my house, you know, in the house, essentially. But for now, it's here in this hideaway, and it could move, and it has moved out to the forest. I've done coaching while I'm walking with clients. Sometimes we sit on a big stone and we, you know, have these beautiful transformative conversations. So that's not going to end. And in fact, once we open, it will definitely increase, I hope, the in-person interaction that I have with my clients. We have to all be grateful for the virtual platforms. I use Zoom, and of course it allows me to have clients on the West Coast and the central states, all over, which I appreciate that. And I'm grateful that we're all able to communicate that way. But wow, it's so fabulous to be able to also meet in person. I will also have workshops on some weekends, like an all-day Saturday workshop. And of course, most of you know that the work I do, excuse me, is with clients, most of them over 50, over 60, 70 years old and beyond, around grief and around loss in our lives, which has so many different implications for how we create our next chapter of our life. However much time we have, however many resources we have in our life, sometimes our resources decrease or increase as we age. And it's all very important that you reflect and you explore, but that you also create that plan. Create that plan for greater meaning and purpose in life. I could talk about that, of course, for the next hour or two. But I think a lot of you know that kind of work that I do. And I do think the women that I serve find enormous transformation from the work. And it is ongoing, you know, like you create a plan, you start to put it into practice, you notice the benefits, you notice the healing, and then another crisis hits, right? That's just life. And, you know, you have to just pause, regroup, but also remember what you've already created to carry on with. You have to remind yourself of the strengths you have. And that's where a life coach is very important. And especially if it's somebody you've been working with, like I have clients and they reach a point of moving on, they feel great. When the next crisis hits, they'll call me. And I call it a tune-up, you know? We have to kind of take ourselves in for a tune-up and remind ourselves the kind of inner strength and resiliency that we do have, because it's very challenging in life. There's something that always happens, of course. So I'm looking forward to doing those workshops too. And I think that's just about the extent of the questions I've had so far. Except for the one that I get asked a lot, which is, when are you opening Kumari of the Woods? So I am going to do this hopefully quick recap of where we are. Excuse me. We have 2 cottages that are farther than halfway completed, you know, and we got stuck 13 months ago. We've been working through a land use permit in Vermont called Act 250, and we are at the very end of getting that. I mean, it's been quite a journey. I'm sure I'll be writing more about that too. I value all the support we've had from our administrator at the Act 250 Commission, Pete. We hired a great attorney. I'll shout out his name, AJ LaRosa in Burlington. He's phenomenal. And yeah, we're almost there. We're at the point where we, the wetlands, the Agency of Natural Resources is involved because of what we're doing. And everyone has signed off except the wetlands director was here last week. As most of you know, I made a video 2 weeks ago about the horrible flooding in Vermont. And I just feel so badly for so many people who have lost their homes, and there's roads that are out. And for us, I'm so grateful that the only thing we lost was the driveway, the road that goes down to the hideaways. And it does touch the wetlands. And so what happened for us is that road washed away completely in the flood, but it washed into the wetlands, which is really bad. And for those of us who care about the forest and our natural resources, wetlands and vernal pools are very protected. So we are working with our excavator, Cody Campbell, who's great, but also incredibly overworked now because there's so much flooding all over the state. But we want him to come out to dig that out of the wetlands, you know, clean it up. It's pretty expensive, so we've had to figure that out. After the cleanup happens, our engineer will come back, inspect everything, and then we should be okay with the wetlands people. But we are close to the permit, and it just depends on the timeliness of all this. Yeah, I mean, after the Agency of Natural Resources is all done, our proposal goes back to the commission. They look at it again. We had to make one change in moving the event space because of the wetlands. Again, we moved to another location, so they have to look at that. I can't really say the timeline. I'm hoping in another month, you know, we'll be all set. So that's one thing that's holding us up. We cannot work on the cottages or on anything until we get that permit. It's really critical. It's required. So we're going to be in compliance. We are going to have every permit that we have to have, and then we'll resume. If we can resume by September, October, we will begin first to finish those 2 cottages. They will open up first. You know, it will not be the whole retreat that we are building. For example, the event space won't be built yet. And the other cottage will not be built yet. But we would like to have guests come. And we'll have a special rate, you know, to just entice you to think about being the first one to rent a cottage. And it is year-round. So even if we open in January, you know, come, because the snow is so beautiful in the forest. I will tell you, as much as everyone loves summer and loves fall for sure, which I do too, winter is my favorite time here on this land. It's, for one thing, so silent and so peaceful. And so those of us who value our privacy and are a little bit introverted, it is just a blessing to see the beauty and the silence of the forest. It's so beautiful. So if we can open before winter, if we get the cottages done, you will be the first to know. And then we'll continue. So, you know, the lender that we're working with is very passionate about the build of all of Kumari the Woods, you know, the whole thing. But it does need to be paced. The other obstacles that we face, if you know anything about Vermont, we have had a difficult summer with a lot of rain, and then July 10th, the flood happened. But then we also, every year, struggle with winter construction. You know, it's hard to get something built in the wintertime. If you get it under roof by November, you can usually keep going and finish. But to start something new, like the ground is too hard. There's too much ice and frozen ground. So what does that mean? I'm thinking it will be spring, when everything starts to melt around April, that we will be breaking ground for the 3rd cottage, maybe the event space, possibly even my house at that point too. But it's, you know, and think that's realistic. At first, we really hoped we could get started on all that maybe in October, but it might be a little bit unrealistic because all of our contractors in the state, especially the excavators, but even the plumbers like my son, are so overworked now because of the flood. You know, there's emergency, there's families without housing. So, you know, us putting in a foundation for a new building, even if we have the permit, is probably going to have to be delayed. What does that mean? Let me just take a moment and share. This is the place in our lives, in my life, where I practice my yoga. I practice that pause. Would I like to finish this, get the permit and finish this by September 1st? Of course I would. Of course I would. I mean, even if we had a huge donation now, we still have to wait on the permit. Maybe we get the permit in 2 weeks. It's a place where there's a lot of uncertainty, okay? This, I'm sure, is a place that's very familiar to all of you, right? There's always those times in our life where we're putting together a plan. Maybe you're taking a trip. And now, of course, with air travel, you might be stuck at an airport for 2 days, right? Your flights get canceled, they get rescheduled. Now you've lost 2 days of your trip, you know. You have a choice in how you react to that delay. You have a choice. You can get stressed, you can get angry at the airlines. I could get angry at the Act 250 people, right? I could get angry at the fact that contractors don't call me back, right? I have a choice, and I choose to take that deep breath and to just sit in a place of gratitude for how far we've come. and knowing it's all going to happen when it's right to happen, when the time is right for it to happen. The more I push and I force and I get angry and annoyed with everyone around me, that is not the energy I want to bring to my forest. That is not what I want you to bring. You know, when you come here, bring your openness to change and to just feeling a sense of love in your heart and your body. I'm sure all of you are going to come here with a certain level of anxiety. You know, what's it like to be in the middle of a forest? Oh my gosh, what if I see a bear? What if, you know, what if I take a walk and, I mean, we're going to have our trails well outlined, but, you know, what if I get lost or something like that? So we all live in this place of uncertainty in our life. And sure, planning is a great thing. I mean, I've gone through at least 50 plans this summer of like how things can move on. But I'm also just open to what awaits me. And I'm open to waiting for the right time to resume and to open Kumari of the Woods for all of you. So that kind of explains a little bit of where we are. And you will definitely get many updates, both in my newsletters, on the website. I'm so grateful for Jean, my website person, who updates the website with new photos at times, and she also sends out my newsletter every Friday. So thank you, Jean, because it's, you know, it's sometimes not easy working with me either. Let me just say, I'm pretty fluid and like, I'm not always on deadline either. So I can't wait to meet so many of you watching this and just listening to our journey and reading about our journey. I really feel like some of you I already know already. And so if I have the opportunity to meet you in person someday, if you come to Kumari of the Woods, I will just be so thrilled. So that's it. Those are, I think, all the questions I've had so far. Again, other questions, send them my way. I'm happy to respond to you. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I, of course, am going to go out and take a walk. We have the sun at this moment. We've had so much rain that I have to just catch those sun rays when I can. All right. Have a beautiful weekend wherever you are, and just keep that sense of gratitude in your heart.